Mr. Speaker, I support the regulation of online casino gambling. In fact, this work began under the previous government. However, I oppose this bill. I am concerned that this bill opens up doors to offshore gambling casinos without a strong plan for harm reduction. Everyone should be able to stay healthy, Mr. Speaker, and get the care when they need it. And addiction, online gambling addiction, is no different. I want to see more that the government does to protect vulnerable people from online gambling harm. The Prime Minister has been weak on his leadership, and it's the same reflection on this bill. It's weak. There are many cuts. Apologies, Mr. Speaker. I withdraw that, Mr. Speaker. But what I want to say, Mr. Speaker, is there have been many cuts on women's pay. It's harder to see a doctor or a nurse, and the price to getting medical assistance has become more expensive. Whilst families across New Zealand struggle with the cost of living, this is the one bill that is going to make New Zealanders waste more money of their hard-earned cash on the exploitation and exposure of more online gambling and causing gambling harm to Kiwis every day. Mr. Speaker, I have a particular concern. Kiwis cannot focus on making good decisions and peace of mind on paying their bills, caring for their families, because many have lost jobs and businesses for a vital plan for their future. Mr. Speaker, instead, what we have is that this bill, the government is going to open New Zealand up to its saturation of the online casino gambling licences, meaning New Zealanders will be open to more exploitation, more online gambling harm. Why is the government not protecting New Zealanders? What is the government thinking? 15 government licences or platforms.
Right, someone is going to leave the House. It's quite unacceptable.
Mr. Speaker.
And your time will be extended 30 seconds.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, this will be problematic in New Zealand. It will bring in short-term profits and convenience and the long-term negative effects. And we know it's an unregulated market, and I support a regulated market, but not this bill in its current form. I do not support this bill.
I call on Benjamin Doyle.
He te māngai o te whare tēnei te mihi mai oha ki a koe. Kia koutou ngā minita o te kāwanatanga me ngā mema o Paremata, kei te mihi ki a koutou katoa hoki. Mr. Speaker, Te Pāti Kākāriki have long held that all gambling legislation must focus primarily on the elimination of harm. It is the industry itself and its insidious tendrils of coercion which devastate individuals, whānau and communities. We must focus on addressing the root causes of these harms and always work to protect the humanity of those who have been caught up in its web. Here the system is broken, not the people who are suffering under it. Online gambling is a new, rapidly evolving and changing frontier. It brings 24/7 gambling into people's houses and allows it to be easily hidden from friends and whānau by being accessible on small devices such as cell phones. As with many things online, there are challenges in validating and regulating. People can pose as whoever they want to be online, especially in instances where gambling is surreptitiously embedded in otherwise seemingly innocuous gaming apps. Left unchecked and without appropriate regulation, it allows an environment for young people to have unlimited access to online gambling sites. Not doing enough to regulate online gambling effectively isolates those most vulnerable to developing problem gambling habits. This risk and its correlating harms will only compound as problem gambling amongst those who gamble online is 10 times more higher than that of the general population. We know that due to predatory and targeted marketing tactics, Māori and Pasifika communities are more vulnerable to the economically, psychologically, socially and spiritually destructive nature of gambling. This is a te tiriti issue. Despite her words in the House today, I note that the Minister's paper to Cabinet regarding this bill explicitly states tax revenue as a key factor driving this regulation rather than harm reduction. This is a fatal error. We must centre the lives and needs of communities, especially those most affected by decisions such as this. Regulation and tax generation are mechanisms to achieve that, but they should not be the primary objective. Legislation must prioritise people, not profit. It is appalling that in an industry which is explicitly affecting Māori more than any other population group, that this piece of proposed legislation has utterly ignored the voice and expertise of Māori communities. Iwi leaders express that it is astounding, disappointing and concerning that the Minister has failed to meaningfully work with tangata whenua on this bill. The Problem Gambling Foundation, harm reduction advocates and community experts have all called for this bill to go further. If she were here, I would ask the Minister to consider banning gambling advertising altogether.
The member will recognise that it is totally inappropriate to reflect on the presence or otherwise of anyone in the House.
Apologies.
Withdraw and apologise for that statement.
I withdraw and apologise for that statement. The Problem Gambling Foundation and all others have asked for this bill to go further. I ask the Minister to consider banning gambling advertising altogether, as this is one of the most direct and ubiquitous coercion techniques which directly leads to harm. Why not also redistribute a far greater proportion of the profits generated through tax and licensing directly to the organisations and advocates working on the ground to reduce gambling harms? I stand here to voice the Greens' strong criticism of this bill for its flimsy and ineffective attempt at reducing the devastating harms of online problem gambling. We have an opportunity to meaningfully enact the advice and recommendations of experts and those who have had experiences of harmful gambling. We have an opportunity to prioritise human well-being rather than the profits of the offshore gambling industry. However, we understand that while this bill only scratches the surface of what is possible in gambling harm reduction, it is a small first step in the right direction. The Greens will support this bill to Select Committee with the intention of engaging fulsomely and critically with our colleagues from across the House in order to strengthen this proposed legislation. For that reason, I commend this bill to the House.
I'll call you when I'm ready, and not before. Some people on that side of the House need to just be a little bit more respectful of how the chair works. Tim Costley.
Mr. Speaker, pleasing to hear some kind of guarded support from the Green Party. I'm not quite sure where Labor landed with their speech. I think my concern is what's going to happen here is, look, I'm not a fan of much fan of gambling, and as if you listen, that's where we're getting to. With as the last member said, the rapid pace of change with online gambling, you know, it is deregulated, it's all run from overseas, listed off a whole bunch of things that they're concerned about. That's the whole point of this bill, though. The whole point is there is no regulation. We should have some. There are no rules that say you should ascertain the identification of that person or that they're 18. Maybe we should have some. There is no money coming in to get channeled back into the harm that can come from gambling. We should do that. And that's what this bill does. And if members opposite actually bother to read it, they might be more engaged in the process. So I'm commending this bill. Let's take it to Select Committee. Let's do that. And let's actually bring in some regulation to temper this rather than just fighting based on some kind of ideology.
Jamie Arbuckle.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise on behalf of New Zealand First to support the online casino gambling bill. This bill is to stop the unregulated situation that we find ourselves in at the moment. This bill will create a robust framework to regulate the online casino gambling and protecting consumers and minimising harm. We want to make sure that only trustworthy operators are allowed to operate in the online gambling market. These trustworthy operators must be subject and accountable to New Zealand standards, not overseas standards. And currently this industry is very prone to exploitation, and we're keen to bring this to an end. Mr Speaker, sending this to the Select Committee is the right thing to hear submissions, to hear concerns, and to see if this piece of legislation goes in the right direction. One concern we do have is what we have heard from other speakers is up to 15 licences, and that will be dealt with over 3 stages of a licence process. So it'll be really interesting to hear from people around actually if we do need 15 operators in this space or up to 15 operators. Maybe it is a case that we start off more with 3 or 5, and that is a process I think we can flush out through the Select Committee. We've also heard, Mr Speaker, it is a growing pastime of a number of people to use this, and it is a 24/7 access to this gambling. It's not like necessarily like racehorsing or lotto in that sense, but 24/7, and we do understand that the harm, especially for young people if they can get access to this, but even just harm for the general population. So we've got to make sure that we've got some safeguards in place. So New Zealand First does believe in balancing the economic opportunities, because we have heard that there will be an increased tax take, but also the social responsibility that goes around that, Mr Speaker. And this bill achieves, to an extent at that moment, trying to get the right type of balance. So the focus on the harm of minimalisation and the consumer protection aligns with our commitment to community wellbeing. And on that, Mr Speaker, I'll commend the bill to the House, and we look forward to hearing through Select Committee the different views from people that go through that process. Thank you.
Go on, tāku te Ferris.
Tēnā koe, Te Pika, ai tēnei tūnga tuatahi oku o tira mo te Pāti Māori. Ai tō mātou hokinga mai ki te whare. I te wehenga ke nei o tō mātou tuahine a takutai moana, i te tuahine e moe oki oki, hoki rawa mai ki a tau e Te Pika tēnā koe. Tēnā hoki tātou, tuana hau ki te whakapua ki ngā whakaro a te Pāti Māori mō tēnei tuāhuatanga. No reira, kia tahuri au ki ngā kōrero. Although it may be true that a regulated online gambling industry is better than an unregulated one, gambling does nothing for Māori. Never has, never will, and never will this bill. We do not need overseas companies profiting off our misery. And we cannot support a bill that will legalise the exploitation of our people and all of the people of Aotearoa. The Minister expects that most, if not all, of the licences will be won by offshore companies who are under absolutely no obligation to reinvest any of the income derived back into communities in Aotearoa. The bill is a simple tax-raising exercise, and if this government is involved in deciding how to spend that money, we know that the communities that need it the most won't see a cent. The Ministry's own evidence shows us that the bill will have a disproportionate impact on Māori, Pasifika, rangatahi, and our whānau with lifelong disabilities. Māori are more than 3 times more likely to be entrapped by problem gambling than other New Zealanders. And problem gambling has had a devastating impact on the cohesion, cultural identity and financial stability of whānau Māori for generations. Pacific peoples are more than twice as likely to be entrapped by problem gambling than other New Zealanders also. Gambling harm is already ripping through our communities. We don't need a band-aid fix that legalises and regulates these harmful practices. We need to stop enabling these corporations altogether. And unfortunately, this bill only promotes pure international corporate exploitation with no positive social contribution at all. And for sure, there will be a monetary return, but only to the few. Almost half of all rangatahi Māori between the ages of 16 and 24 have gambled in the last year, and they make up 15% of all moderate to high risk gamblers. This is something that we can't afford to promote, increase, exacerbate at all. People with lifelong disabilities have a higher risk of developing harmful gambling behaviour. Social isolation, unemployment and limited income are all risk factors that contribute to gambling harm. This government has already taken away the minimum wage pay top-up for our disabled whānau, and now they are legalising a gambling regime that could potentially do even more harm. It's not acceptable. Online casino companies are offering Māori influencers hundreds of thousands of dollars to promote online gambling and target our whānau. Hapai Te Hauora Chief Operating Officer Jason Alexander is quoted as saying this: "These gambling companies are now using Māori influencers to reach Māori audiences. It's not just harmful, it's calculated, it's manipulative, and it shows they have no regard for the well-being of whānau Māori or the people of Aotearoa. This bill does nothing to prevent licensed operators from engaging in these predatory practices. In fact, the government are legalising these practices through this bill. It shouldn't be allowed." He's also on the record as saying, "What's really worrying is that these same companies, the ones illegally targeting our people now, could be operating legally here in Aotearoa as early as next year. Their current behaviour shows exactly how little care they have about whānau. And if this is how they act before regulation, then what will they do once they're inside the system?" We support the cause of Hapai Te Hauora to ban gambling advertising in Aotearoa completely. We also cannot support a bill whose department didn't even bother to do a proper tiriti o waitangi analysis. Instead, they relied on a July 2024 cabinet paper, which included a population implications assessment.
The member's time has passed.
Needless to say, we do not support the bill.
Call on Vanessa Winnick.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of the government bill, online casino gambling bill. This bill will provide some regulation in the space of the wild, wild west that is international-based gambling in New Zealand. It does real harm in our communities. At the moment, there is no regulation, and therefore we are creating a method by which things will become illegal, not just creating a path for them to be legalised, but also we point out that everything that's not within those licence boundaries will be illegal. So I commend the bill to the House.
Well done. Camilla Bellich.
Mr. Speaker, and I stand today a bit disappointed really with the bill that we have in front of us, and the reason for that, Mr. Speaker, is that this was really an opportunity to regulate an unregulated market and actually address the main issue with online gambling, which is online harm. Unfortunately, the good work started under the previous government in order to regulate and make a reasonable environment where there are few operators able to be regulated and also provide a significant amount of time and resources to address gambling harm. On the contrary, this bill that we now have before us looks to allow 15 different operators' licences within New Zealand, and the result of that, Mr. Speaker, will be a change in a situation where we are facing ads constantly when we open our phone, when we open our laptop, when our kids log onto YouTube for online gambling. And unlike the situation now where that's technically illegal to advertise for online gambling, this will now be permitted after this bill has passed. And this, in my personal view, as this is a conscience vote, is that there should be a regulated system in New Zealand for online gambling, but regretfully what we have in front of us is only going to make that situation worse. 15 is far too many, Mr Speaker. When the last government looked at this bill, they were considering around, I understand, 3. So there's a significant difference there in what people were looking at. And I think perhaps one of the reasons that the Minister has ended a little bit off the mark on this bill has been because when this was first introduced, and we see that from the 2 regulatory impact statements, the first one clearly states that there hasn't been sufficient time to consult with the people who this would affect. So there hasn't been feedback from public consultation on this proposal, and by the time the second regulatory impact statement was made to Cabinet, Mr Speaker, the decisions had already been made about the regime that was going to be put in place. And unfortunately, this regime will allow far too many online gambling operators to operate in New Zealand. Now, Mr Speaker, we know that online gambling does harm. We know that gambling does harm. We know that this is not something that we want to encourage people into. And so I think a reasonable stand to take would be to have a regulated market that really looks at the harm it causes. But Mr Speaker, the environment that this bill will create, as I've said, is one where we are constantly faced with advertising for online gambling. And there is a bit of irony when I look at what this bill will do and the recent statements that the government has made in relation to preventing online harm for children and young people. The government has said that they'll have a government bill making sure that social media is only available to those over 16. This bill, although technically you're only able to participate on online gambling once you're over 18, and I hope that the verification methods are robust, will actually probably mean that even with those verification methods, children and young people are subjected to what is an addictive form of spending your time, spending your money, and they will see that normalised. And there's information within these regulatory impact statements, and there's information from advocates against problem gambling that show that when it is advertised, it becomes normalised. And we know that because of this regime, there will be legitimate advertising taking place in New Zealand. So I think this is a missed opportunity. The government should have taken a step to reduce gambling harm. They should have taken steps that looked at the health and well-being of New Zealanders. They should have taken steps that meant that people were less likely to be subjected to advertising for online gambling than they are now. Unfortunately, Mr Speaker, this bill does the exact opposite. It brings in far too many licences all at once, and it means that advertising is a lot more likely. So it is regretful that we do not have a regulatory regime, which we sorely need in this country, which will truly address gambling harm. Right. So with that, Mr Speaker, I say my personal view on this conscience matter is that I will not be supporting this bill. However, I am on the Governance and Administration Committee, and I look forward to hearing submissions if this bill does pass through the House, and looking to see if there are improvements that can be made to this bill to better reflect the harm that online gambling does to our communities. So with that, Mr Speaker, I cannot commend this bill to the House, but I ask those on the other side to treat this seriously, look to their conscience, and if this bill does indeed go through, try and make significant changes to this bill, which would actually look to reduce the harm of gambling that we know is so great within New Zealand's community.
Well, on Tom Rutherford.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker, and it's been interesting to listen to the contributions that we've had so far. What I do want to say is this bill is about ensuring that we have a regulated online casino gambling market in New Zealand, better than what we currently have, which is completely unregulated. A complete Wild West scenario where anybody can operate an online gambling service here in New Zealand. And what we're simply saying is there'll be 15 licences available, so we can regulate it up to, as Todd Stevenson correctly says, up to 15 licences available. And so we can actually regulate it here in New Zealand. So we actually know who the operators are, rather than what happens at present, where it's an ad hoc scheme where absolutely anyone can partake in it. And I think that will be for the betterment of New Zealand and for all of us to have a greater understanding of what the online casino gambling market looks like, and therefore I commend it to the House.
Aruna Williams.
Mr Speaker, thank you. you. There's a time-honoured tradition in this House that issues like gambling, like alcohol, like prostitution reform, Mr Speaker, have been treated as conscience issues, and so it is right that in this debate members are afforded the opportunity to speak to their values and the values of those people that they represent in an issue as important as this one. And I think it shows us where we have gotten to with this coalition government, that national speech after speech has been about whether we accept this regime, which does very little to improve the situation, if not make it worse, or do nothing. That is not what members are called to do in issues of conscience. This is an issue where every member should be thinking about how best to serve those communities who we represent in this House. And Mr Speaker, I want to talk about how this bill impacts rangatahi and young people, and how the situation will be made worse by this government regulation, which does not go as far as it should, which does not go as far as the previous government would have. Have national members asked their ministers to discuss this? Have there been national caucus meetings about this issue, where 15 licences are going to be granted to now government-sanctioned online gambling that will then legally advertise to young people? Have they asked why it's 15 and not 1 or 2? Have they asked how this will now impact the young people in their communities they represent? Well, this is about the young man who I met over the holidays. He's a mate of the sister of my husband. And he dropped out of university as a promising young engineering student at 20 years old, addicted to online poker. His friends knew him as a poker star, but that leads you down a course of an addictive and fundamentally harmful hobby and pursuit, which the minister says, well, if adults choose to do this, then good on them. But her changes miss all of the kinds of harm reductions that are needed to make sure that more young people like him are not going down this path and are ultimately giving up the promising careers of the type that he had and the kind of opportunities in life that he had, because they become addicted to what is a fundamentally harmful and much worse situation than going down to the pokies and putting a bet on the horses over a pint of beer with your mates, because it's in your room at midnight, online, in a way which does not have any of the harm reduction tools available, but could have. This minister could have introduced a bill today, the work has been done, that included reduction of online harm for young people, that included reduction of harms for people in the digital space, that government says it prioritises. Why are we considering a social media ban for young people if we don't believe that there are genuine digital harms to young people that government is poorly equipped to deal with now, that tech giants are actively advertising to young people in a way that they know will get them hooked? Influencers who are out there peddling gambling to 16, 17, 18-year-olds. Now, this bill would allow those 18-year-olds to still continue to be targeted in that exact way, where online harms through gambling, through things like loot boxes, through video games are completely fine. This bill misses the point, and it is a conscience issue. It is an issue for every member to look at their community and say, is it okay for me to go down to the local markets and know that 1 in 3 of the secondary students I talk to have gambled online? Is that okay? Is that the New Zealand I want to live in and the community that I want to represent? No. And that's why I wouldn't be heckling the member from Mangere who is speaking about the young Pacific people who are most affected by this government's failure. This is a bill which does not help them. And we have national members who say, read it. I'll read it. The government regulatory impact statements, both of them, both point to the fact that the government has not done this work, that there was not an effective understanding of the community perspectives in this, that we have NGOs that are well-resourced to do this work, to engage with community groups, and there was not time to engage with them, that there has not been analysis about how this will impact young people. By the way, a generation of young people who are drinking less, who are engaged in less risky sex, who are doing fewer drugs. This is a generation of good kids. They are doing their best, and yet they are gambling more. They have all experienced bullying online. They have all experienced online harm. And now the government says that it's fine to sanction 15 tech giants to get in their eyeballs wherever they go online, social media, YouTube, Spotify, you name it. Everything will be pointed towards this destructive path where young people right now are turning away from the careers that they could have had, are getting addicted to something which is no good for them, and are getting into debt on their credit cards and on their parents' credit cards. Shame on this government.
Dan Pedwa.
Mr. Speaker, fact, New Zealanders up and down this country are gambling online at the moment. And this is why we've got a bill before us that regulates the sector and actually it reduces the harm. And I think this is a good thing. We can get tax from it. It is a formal sector, and I commend this bill to the House. Thank you.
So we come to the end of the debate. I have, as I previously indicated, according to standing orders, treated this subject as a conscience issue. In this case, I know there are members who want to cast a personal vote, and I'm prepared to accept that. This is the process we are going to follow. I'm going to put the question, and I'm going to announce the result. At that stage, any member can ask for a personal vote. The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. The ayes have it. A personal vote has been called for. A personal vote will be held. Ring the bells. In the lobby to the right, the noes will cast their vote in the lobby to the left. Abstentions will be recorded at the table. All votes and abstentions will be recorded by the clerk. Proxy votes will be marked as such. Members present in the chamber or lobbies must cast their vote or abstain. Standing orders 1481 and D, and must not leave before the vote is announced. Standing order 151. Lock the doors.
Lock the doors.
Sorry? What are you pointing at? The question is that the motion be agreed to. It doesn't mean a damn thing. Oh, what?
So this is the ayes and this is the noes.
Aye. The ayes are 83, the noes are 39. The motion is agreed. Unlock the doors.
Unlock the doors.
The question is that the online casino gambling bill be considered by the Governments and Administration Committee. Those of that opinion will say aye. Aye. The contrary, no. The ayes have it. Call on the Honourable Brooke Van Belden.
I move that the online casino gambling bill be reported to the House by 17 November 2025.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. The ayes have it. A party vote is called for. The clerk will conduct a party vote.
New Zealand National.
49 votes in favour.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes opposed.
Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
Te kaumārima ngā poti e whakaai.
ACT New Zealand.
11 votes in favour.
New Zealand First.
8 votes in favour.
Te Pāti Māori.
E rima ngā pōti whakahe.
Could the Green Party please cast their vote one more time for clarity? Benjamin Doyle.
15 votes opposed. Okay. Thank you.
The ayes are 68, the noes are 54. The motion is agreed. Call on Government Order of the Day, number 2.
Employment Relations Amendment Bill, first reading.
The Honourable Brooke Van Belden.
I present a legislative statement on the Employment Relations Amendment Bill.
That legislative statement is published under the authority of the House and can be found on the parliamentary website.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the Employment Relations Amendment Bill be now read a first time. I nominate the Education and Workforce Committee to consider the bill. At the appropriate time, I intend to move that the bill be reported to the House by 17 November 2025. Madam Speaker, I know that many businesses want to do the right thing by their workers, but they are facing increasing uncertainty about how employment law will be interpreted, and they face large potential costs if they get the law wrong. In particular, labour market regulations have become more complex, making it harder for employers and employees to reach solutions that work for both. Policies that were meant to benefit workers have only added to business uncertainty and the cost of doing business. Uncertainty and unreasonable costs discourage investment and hiring, locking Kiwi workers out of employment. The policies in this bill aim to restore business confidence to hire and to increase opportunities for Kiwis. Flexible labour markets are the best environment for businesses to grow. When businesses thrive, our economy thrives. And it's only with a strong economy that we can lift wages, create opportunities, and help Kiwis get ahead. With these objectives in mind,